Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Devine, and this is Leadership Impact. I have been working in leadership roles for years and years and years, not only for my own career, but also a student of leadership roles. And I have the absolute privilege of being connected with one of my very first managers, but most certainly one of the managers who had a huge impact on how I consider leadership and what is possible in leadership roles. And I'd like to introduce you to her. This is Karen Bhatt, who I have known for years, and we're going to explain the story in a second. But Karen, hello. Can you
Hi,
introduce yourself?
certainly, Matthew, and hi everyone who's watching. So just to kind of give you like as you said, a high level overview as to who I am and what I do. The first time I was ever given a leadership role, I was 19 years old, and from there I just kind of kept in management and leadership. I have worked for huge companies like Starbucks, where I was one of their lead facilitators, managers. Also, the Walt Disney Company. I don't speak for the company or the brand, but I certainly was there for quite a few years. Currently, right now, I work for a division of medical software where I go into offices, hospitals, pharmacies, and I teach medical records software to those who take care of us. So that's been an interesting change of pace for myself. But that is me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Now, you and I met about 20 years ago before I even got into corporate at all, before I started
Yeah.
my very first corporate job, I was hired at your store working as a barista at Starbucks.
That is correct. That is correct. It's actually more than 20 years, my darling,
What?
because my child is 22 years old, turning almost 23, and you were definitely around for the birth of that one. So,
Not, no, not true, not true. I was hired. My very first day was your first day back from maternity
oh,
leave. So,
okay. So then, yeah,
so
but at
your
that
daughter
point,
was all not quite a year, but certainly,
yeah.
close to it.
So, yeah, and Aiden's about to turn 23. So
Wow.
it's been a while.
Now, one of the things I loved working at Starbucks, and I'll tell anyone who asks me about this time, was that Starbucks, for me, my experience was that I could go into work at whatever mood I was in, whatever, like however I was feeling that day, and always leave in a better mood, in a better state of mind, despite having worked possibly a full shift, you know,
Yeah.
slugging coffee and carrying on boxes and doing all the things that we do in a retail location. But a lot of that, in fact, I would say most of that comes down to what you were to create as the store manager at that time. Can you tell us just a bit about what it means to be a manager at a retail location? And
Sure.
what did you do to create this amazing experience? Because we're still in touch,
Yeah.
2 decades later, but it's
Yeah.
because of that such an awesome
Aw,
experience.
thanks, babes. Well, you know what? I mean, I have been a huge proponent of the fact that you should always enjoy the environment you step into. And I don't care if it's where you work or if it's a social gathering or perhaps it is a public event. You should be enjoying your time in there. And I find even when it comes down to the job, the dreaded job, if you enjoy the people you're with and you have an atmosphere of fun, almost like a Mary Poppins thing, if it's an atmosphere of fun, it basically makes the time move faster. And retail
Hmm.
work, let's be honest, is not uh, a great job sometimes. It's a very thankless job. And sometimes you're dealing with a lot of angry personalities coming in that tend to take out their emotions on the employees. As Starbucks is no different than that. We saw our fair share of some interesting
Hmm.
people. But as long as I could keep everybody laughing and smiling and enjoying and feeling like they're part of the atmosphere, right? They're not observers, they're participants in it. It makes all the difference. And that's where you kind of, I mean, we can get into it in a molecular level, but that's where you keep employee retention, right? If people enjoy where they are, they're not going to look for somewhere else where they're not going to want to be, right? They're going to want to stay
Hmm.
with you. And that's where loyalty comes into play, right? And
Hmm.
loyalty is key for a lot of operations, not just, personally, but also fiscally. it makes more sense for companies to have loyalty, to have less turnaround, because they're losing less money out the door if that's the case, right? So my intent was always like, first of all, I need to make it fun for everyone who's there,
Mhm.
and make it enjoyable, even through the hard times. But also, I needed to make it fun for me because it would kind of help if I'm in a good mood. That's going to make you guys feel pretty good. If I go storming through the door and I'm all angry and bringing maybe outside things into workplace, that's going to make everyone on edge. Nobody's going to want to do their best, right? Or bring their best selves. So it was imperative for me that everybody felt good, regardless of
Mhm.
what that looked like.
And you did that in spades. Like I can't, like my memories are all of the ridiculous jokes and experiences that we have, and commiserating over the challenging customers, but also celebrating some of the most amazing,
Yeah.
funny things that take place. But there's also a distinction though, right? You can come
Mm.
in with this fun energy, but you're still a boss. And I
Yes.
don't think any of us working in the store ever lost sight of the fact that you were the boss. How do you create that separation? How do you make that distinction between being chummy with your
Yeah.
employees and yet at the same time managing the store and having that, concrete
Yeah.
leadership presence?
Well, it's one before prior to obviously us talking, I was kind of having a think about that as to what I could possibly talk about. And the reality is that there is a vast difference between being a manager and being a leader. And I always
Mm,
tried to strive on the leader side because it did allow me that ability, the separation of church and state, so to speak,
yeah.
where we could have fun, but we knew that we had to get certain jobs done. So when you're a manager, I feel that managerially, you're task focused. You must do this to do this to do this to do this. Your team needs to get these things done, these goals attained. Whereas a
Hmm.
leader is like, hey, I'm going to take you on a trip with me. Here are all the goals in front of us. How do we hit all of these? Because what happens is that, especially in weird hierarchies,
Hmm.
um, if you perceive somebody to be, holier than thou, high on their high horse, you're not going to respect them very much. And it's every time they ask you to do something, you'll do it, but it's very begrudgingly, right? Because you're not the
Mm.
one coming up with it. What I liked to do in Starbucks, and even, when I worked for the Walt Disney Company, I wanted to be part of the team. I want to be that leader who says, hey guys, you know what? I got you. Regardless of what's going to go down, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm going to stand in front of you and I'm going to back you anytime you need me to. But in order for us to do that, I need your help with things, right? So what I used
Hmm.
to do was I would make sure I did everything that I expected my employees to do. If you needed to clean the bathroom, I would clean the bathroom. If you need to wash the floor, I will clean and wash the floor. I would never put myself in a position where I wasn't willing to get on the ground with my soldiers and work at the same time. And when you have that, that's where that whole loyalty comes in. So then all of a sudden, yes, we can be chummy chummy, but if you see me taking the hits, standing in front, backing you up, right? Then you
Hmm.
still acknowledge me as the leader. You're like, yes, this is definitely the leader, and I'm going to listen to this person. But you also then realize I'm not a threat, right? I'm not
Yeah.
the big bad guy on top of you who's micromanaging. And that was the thing is I found it really comes down to people. Managers, I find, are task focused, like I said. Leaders are people focused. And if I can
Mm.
have a moment with you and you respect me, maybe we do have a disciplined conversation, right? Maybe you're coming in late all the time. Not you, Matthew. You were always prompt. But you come in all the time and you're a little bit late. Well, that's a discipline thing. So I might be able to, instead of tearing you a new one in front of all the other employees or like really giving it to you in the back room. How about me as a leader? I approach you and I say, "Hey, I noticed that you're late lately. Are you okay? What's going on?" So we're having that discipline conversation. this person knows that this behavior is probably not acceptable, but we're meeting in a middle ground that is people focused. And then maybe through that conversation, I find out what's going on, right? Maybe there is a very
Hmm.
good reason why this person is late all the time. And if there isn't, then we've had that conversation and the person knows, okay, the expectation is from now on, I need to be on time. We're still good. We're still friends.
Hmm.
There isn't that
Hmm.
awkwardness, right? So it's one of those things I pride myself on is because I find for myself too, I think about my own personal experiences. Growing up, I started working. I mean, I think it's a Gen X thing. I started working at the age of 14. First job was cotton
Hmm.
ginny as a stock person. They couldn't have me on the floor. I was too young. But I had some terrible, terrible managers. And
Hmm.
so I've always kept that in the back of my head. Like that's the experience. Do I want somebody else to look at me the way I look at some of my previous managers? The answer is no, I don't. I want them to kind of find something in the way that I am leading that they'll be able to take to their next job or their next journey, because that's the whole point of leadership. It is to inspire, it is to motivate, it is to nurture and send forward, right? Move forward, everybody moving forward. So that's a long-winded answer, and I'm so sorry to.
No, this is good. This is like because it weaves in all like the experience I had, and I found myself trying not to get pulled out because it kept on sparking memories of
Yeah,
different experiences that we had working together, and that connection with people. Like, are you okay? Be
yeah,
checking the person and making sure the person is okay because you're seeing past whatever the behavior is to
yeah,
whatever the real issue might be with the individual. Uh,
absolutely.
and that connection with the human it makes a huge difference.
Huge.
Now, your current role, you're focusing a lot more on the training side,
Yes.
but there's a lot of effort and attention being spent on communication.
Oh
What
yeah.
are some of the things that you're learning, like in your current role, when it comes to communicating that leaders should be paying attention to or trying to develop in themselves?
Oh, absolutely. And what a great question, especially given my current role is the first time I've stepped away from management since 1989, right? I've been
Hmm.
doing a management and a leadership role since 89. Um, and this time around I took a step back and I said, no, I just want to be an employee. Um, and it's interesting on the flip side because you can look at because I work for a rather large corporation, like a national corporation, and I look at certain leaderships, certain management, and I think, oh, you're doing it all wrong, and I can see where they're doing it wrong, and I can see the grumblings that are happening with employees and this whole
Hmm.
quiet quitting movement and why it is becoming so prevalent, especially in these large corporations, right? The quiet quitting movement. Now, if I had stayed in leadership, I don't know I would have heard as much about it, but because I'm one of the employees, I hear everything, right? So it's left me realizing that the way we used to run businesses, the way we used to handle our teams and our goals have changed drastically. And they have done
Hmm.
so in the most rapid fire way, especially since COVID came along. And we're starting to see this younger generation come up that have different values and different, what I call buy ins than we did
Hmm.
for, older generations. So I'm seeing this shift that is happening. And as far as, customer focused, right? Where because I am dealing obviously with clients who are spending huge amounts of money for these software systems. Um, the human element really has gone out the door. It really has. It has gone out the door as far as clients go, the way that they treat uh people that they've hired either in their
Do you
office
think that's
or themselves.
accidental or do you think that's intentional?
I think it's intentional now. I think that people are so stressed out. And like I said, the world has changed, right? Decorum seems to have gone out the doorway when it comes to a lot of things. And so
Hmm.
people have become very me centric. What can you do for me? And if you can't do anything for me, I want to talk to your manager. This is terrible. I hate this. Like it's this.
Hmm.
Whereas before, those things were, we kept in our heads. We might have said them to other people, but we certainly didn't. say them out loud to the people who were in our office spaces or to clients, etc. So I'm finding that that's been an interesting kind of path to navigate because I always joke with especially some of my colleagues now that I'm about as threatening as a Cabbage Patch Kid. I look the part. I am that person, right? I am the Cabbage Patch Kid. I am not that one who's
Hmm.
going to be scary. But I feel like I'm this Cabbage Patch Kid in a world full of Chucky dolls. I
Hmm.
feel, the clients are Chuckies, certain employees are Chuckies. It's just we have lost focus in amongst all the technology and the social media and the AI, innovations. We've lost the human element, and I'm seeing the effect of it. I'm seeing high turnovers, not just in my company, but in our client spaces. I'm seeing, younger generations not willing to put up with a lot of stuff for less money, right? I'm
Hmm.
seeing like people using the fact that, hey, listen, the cost of living is insane right now. So unless you can meet me where I'm at, we have nothing to talk about, and I'm not going to go the extra mile. I'm not going to give you my loyalty. Um, it's scary. It's very scary. Things are shifting and changing, but I will. This is the hill I will die on. That it's it comes down to if you've got the human element. If we bring back the human element into our dealings, whether it is with clients, whether it is with our companies that we're working for, I think that we can only go up from there, right? I just don't
And
think that
what
the
sort of
path we're on is too good.
when it comes to bringing that human element back, because I know there are a lot of leaders out there who want to create a good employee environment, who
Yeah,
want to develop their teams, but may not necessarily know exactly how to get there. What are the
yeah.
sorts of things can a manager do, can a leader do to build that human connection back into the workplace?
Great question. I think to me, everybody has a buy-in. Everyone has a buy-in. So before managers might be like, well, this is just how things are, right? Do your job, clock at the end of the day, etc. What I would do as a leader is I would be like, okay, humans are not built carbon copies of each other. We all have different motivations. What's this employee's buy-in? So what you could do is like, for instance, when I was working for the Disney company, I knew that in amongst my team, there were certain members who were motivated by money. There were certain members who were motivated by extra 15-minute breaks. There were members of my team who liked validation, a public
Hmm.
form validation. And so I would then figure out, okay, if employee A over here will go the extra mile for a extra 15-minute break, that doesn't cost us anything. But I'm going to make sure that, in tough times or whatever, if this employee steps up, we're going to have that human connection. I'm going to go, good job. Here's an extra 15-minute break. I
Hmm.
have now got their buy-in, right? So, and then even down to money, right? Maybe I put up 15, $20 of my own money. I'm going to buy you lunch today. Whoever does this thing, I'm part of your team. I'm going to give you what you want. And validation's huge, right? We find
Hmm.
so often in especially larger companies, you're a number, you're a cog in the machine, so to speak. Well, it's nice when people or managers or leaders call you out for the good things you do and make sure everyone knows it, right? And says, hey,
Hmm.
everyone, Sally just did the most amazing thing, and I'm so grateful that you're on my team, Sally. Amazing. It's a human connection that AI can't generate. It's not something as like just an Instagram post, which is kind of phony baloney, anyways. It's a
Hmm.
human connection you're making. And that's where I really feel like if we have that, if we figure out the motivation, if we figure out the buy-in for people and we make those human moments happen, right? Because when I do that with someone, I'm basically saying, I see you. We're in this together. I see you. And I'm going to
Hmm.
give you what you need to fulfill you, whether it's in this job or feeling great about leaving that day or whatever. Which actually, I mean, I know it seems like sheet lightning. I'm jumping all over the place here, but the one thing that I actually learned taking into when I went into Disney was that at the beginning of the shift, I would make
Hmm.
sure I said hello to every single person as they walked in the door, or if I was coming in and they had already been there, hi, how are you? How's your day been? And at the end of the shift, I always said, thank you. Thank you for working today. Thank you for that amazing thing you did with that kid. Thank you for the way you folded those t-shirts. Making sure that we bookend the day with a positive.
I'm going to pull out just a detail that you did right there, just because I
Yeah,
think it's really important, is being specific when you
yeah,
show recognition, that it's more
mhm,
than just simply saying thank you.
yeah,
Like you are good at saying thank you for folding the t-shirts. Like
yeah,
thank you for the specific activity so that the individual then knows that
mhm,
you have seen them, that you are observing their behavior and you're recognizing the work that they are doing, that it's just
yeah,
not a cheap like, oh yeah, good work, like, oh, I don't know, I
yeah,
have no idea, but I'm just saying like because I think it's the right thing to say. No, you know it's the right thing to say, and you are being intentional about that. I just want to
yeah,
draw attention because that's a really
yeah.
critical aspect of what you just demonstrated.
And it really is, it's that human element again.
Yeah.
If I was just a standard manager, maybe I say thank you, thanks guys, see you tomorrow. That means nothing, right? That's a blanket
Hmm.
statement. AI could write that. Thank you for your job today. Whoop-de-doo. But if I sit there and I point out, I saw what you did, and that was pretty damn amazing, and I'm so grateful for it. Now all of
Hmm.
a sudden, we both have the same, we're on a common ground, we're on a common purpose, we're teammates, we're not just cogs in the machine. And that's the whole thing. I learned that very much at Disney, and I think that it made all the difference. And even now in this job, if I am working with other team members doing what I do, I like to thank them. Thank you so
Hmm.
much. I really appreciated when you were my backbone for this. I really appreciated the way you handled XYZ, because I think it means something. In a world right now where everything is so disposable, like, and that's really what it comes down to. Our world has become technologically phenomenal and extremely disposable and singular, that when we
Hmm.
have those human connection moments, whether it is giving a 15-minute break extra or acknowledging something as small as folding t-shirts, we're making a human connection that cannot be falsely created, right? It's disingenuous if it is.
Hmm.
And I really feel that that's where leaders excel. I mean, I've got a great leader now. There are two leaders I've had in my lifetime that I would follow through, the pits of hell, and because I have such loyalty to them, they made my job something more than just a job, and they made me feel like I was part of the team. And the one I have right now, he's amazing. um he's the type of guy, and this is what I've learned from him, is that, let's say, for instance, I'm having a bad day, things are going wrong, I'm just like, his thing isn't, well, go get it done. What is the problem here? Why haven't you done this? He will stop everything, like he lets me talk, and then he'll say, what can I do to support you? Oh,
Hmm.
what do you support me? Wait, what? Like, you're not just going to tell me get it done, brush it off, like suck it up, buttercup, get on out there. No, he'll listen to everything I have to say, right or wrong. Sometimes I could just rant, and he'll say, what can I do to support you? How can I make this work for you today? I'll be like, you
which
know what?
gets to which gets to that same thing that you talked about in your own leadership style. It's
Yeah.
about he gets himself in the trenches with you in a sense.
Yes.
Granted, he's a different level, but he
Yeah.
is saying, it's your essentially your work, but I am here to help you do this thing.
Yeah. It's like we're working together towards a common
Yeah.
goal, right? I'm
Hmm.
not just on high living, saying we'll get things done. And when you have that moment where you have people hear you, even in your desperate hours, in your bad moments, in your terrible, no good, horrible days, and you have someone willing to sit and hear you, they don't have to agree with you, right? And a lot of the times, my manager and I, we do not agree. We will go toe to toe on some things. I will always respect that man, though. And
Hmm.
regardless of whether we agree or not, I understand his position. I will always defer to the fact that he is my manager. But I love the fact that he says, "How can I help you? What can I do to support you?" And sometimes it's just the act of being able to speak freely without fear of consequence, right? Without fear of retribution. Being able to just go blah, and that's all I need. And I'll tell them that, you know what? I'm good. You listened to me. I just needed to get that off my chest. Or sometimes I'll say, "Hey, can you help me by finding me XYZ? Can you link me up with this person?"
Mhm.
And there comes in the other aspect of leadership, right? With leadership and management. Management likes to talk the talk. They rarely walk the walk. They will toe the
Mm.
company line. They will say all the little sound bites, right? We're going to circle back. We're going to put a pin in it.
Oh,
I
the
have
lovely
the
corporate
band.
speak.
Yeah, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now, but it's on my to do. Going forward, they have all the buzzwords.
Right.
Leadership will do follow through. So if I come to you and I say, I'm having a problem, here's what I need. And they say, I'm going to go find X, Y, and Z for you. And then they do, that's the follow through. That then shows me, it
Mm.
mentors me, and it says, hey, your word is your bond. If you are always true to your word, people will respect that. People will move mountains for you if you are true to your word because they know they can depend on you. If I've got somebody who's
Mhm.
just giving me empty platitudes, giving me this corporate speak, I'm never going to come to them. I'm not going to respect them. And I'm certainly not going to do my absolute best for them or the goals of the company or even for my little, singular cell. So it's the human element, it's the walking the walk as well as talking the talk, right? Let's
Mhm.
just do the follow through and fun, having fun, just making things fun. It's not hard. You don't need money to make things fun. I think some companies they think, oh, a pizza party solves everything. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. Uh,
I remembered, to go back to the Starbucks examples, to making it fun and it not being expensive, like how often were the most hilarious moments communicated by these little notes on
oh
the
yeah.
employee board
Oh
that were
yeah.
just between the you and the staff.
Yeah.
And, I know that the staff was just dying of laughter. We'd come in the morning and see this ridiculous little note from you. Um,
Exactly. And that's the thing is that in the Disney store, just to kind of show you kind of what I did with them there. So of course, anyone who's ever been into either the parks or the stores knows that we had a lot of plush characters, and
mhm.
Disney owns the copyrights to the Muppets. So
Right.
we had, of course, all the plushies and the Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, but we also had all the Toy Story movie stuff, right? Woody and Buzz and Bullseye. And then we also had Kermit. And we had like
Mm.
all, so I got myself a Kermit. And if I was closing the night before, I would pose him in ridiculous situations in the store. So whoever was coming in the morning would find him at the cash register with like till paper everywhere, like there's been some malfunction happening and it looks like he's typing on the keyboard. Or I had him propped up mopping in the background with like a big mop, doing like a cleanup in aisle 3. And I had him photograph or taking faxes of his butt on our our fax
Oh.
machine. And just little things like that. So it got to the point where like employees, they would look forward to coming into work for those weird moments that they were seeing, right? Like just, and it's something so simple that cost nothing. Well, I mean, it cost me my Kermit. I have
Time.
Kermit.
Yeah.
I have Kermit, but the fact is that it cost nothing, but it made people excited to come in to see where is Kermit today? What is he up to today? Where can I find him in the store? You know, it's I think that's great. Like and in Starbucks, we had that employee board down in the basement that we could
Right.
put things that, obviously our customers didn't see. But once again, moments of joy, right?
Hmm.
Those quick little moments that make me not someone to be feared, but someone to laugh with, right? We're all in this together. I'm
Hmm.
about to break out into a High School Musical song, but but it's true. It's when we have that that human connection, right? I think you and I spoke about this at the beginning of COVID when everybody was like, the world was crazy and we were trying to figure out, how do we navigate? How do we connect to each other now that we're so isolated? And
Mhm.
I remember there was myself and Peter and Brooke and like
Right.
we're all Starbucks people and still, and we were talking about invisible threads. That regardless of where we are in the world, we have these invisible threads that attach to each other.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I like the fact that I'm still very friendly, very much so. Some of my dearest friends are my employees that came in from Starbucks, from the Disney company. I have carried these people through my life with me because they meant so much to me. And I don't think that we could have done what we did unless we did have a human connection with each other, you know?
And I think, like coming from the opposite side of that, that invisible connection exists because we felt that connection. We believed it. You showed up in a genuine fashion and built that connection. And so, of course, we're going to be loyal as employees, but we
Yeah,
also saw like we were connected to you as people, that human connection. And it lasted beyond, our
yeah,
time working at Starbucks and years later.
yeah,
So, like
definitely.
it's a thing that's a mutual experience when you show up authentically in a genuine way and make those real human connections with people.
And you know what? You're hitting on something really interesting there, Matthew. You're saying in a genuine way, showing up in a genuine way. And listen, I am so like I'm tech savvy, right? Because I have to be. In my job, I am very tech savvy. I am extremely social media savvy. I've stayed on top of all of this because one, I'm fascinated by it. And two, I mean, it gave me a way to discuss things with my Gen Z child. We're on the same level. I
Hmm.
can talk the
Yeah.
language, right? But with all of that, with all of the wonderful things that have happened and have come about, there is this slick, disingenuous look that everything has, whether it's our
Mm.
lifestyle, whether it's our aspirations, our job titles, what how we project in the world. It's all very slick and very manufactured, right?
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
find that I want a return to genuine, to authentic, to having somebody genuinely show up and give their authentic selves, either to the job or to the manager or to the person, whatever, because that's real, right? I'm tired of living in the shiny, shiny land. I want real. I want
Hmm.
people to be real. If you're having a bad day, I want to hear about it because that's real and we can then have a common ground. But if you're always shiny and slick and I'm always shiny and slick, there's no honesty in that. I don't know
Hmm.
how we can get to certain goals because neither of us is being honest with each other or even with ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
And my sister one year gave me a magnet that says, I hope that your life is as good as Facebook makes it seem, right? Or look. And it's true. We post these things on media. We do all these things very manufactured. And I find the best teams, the best leaders come from the moments that are not shiny, that are
Hmm.
not manufactured, that are very real. And it makes you feel like a human being again.
I'm I'm giving that a moment because because that hits so many different things because it gets back to that, being able to connect on a human level. Like if you're interacting in a workplace and you as the boss are frustrated, you're having an experience being vulnerable to share.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a line as to what you share, but making sure that they see you, your employees see you as being not this, you know,
Yeah.
pinnacle, godly figure, but somebody who actually has a few bruises and,
Yeah.
can get their hands dirty, metaphorically and
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, it really does make a difference because let's be hypothetical, right? If I was having something terrible happening in my background in my real life, right?
mhm, yeah.
And I come into work and you're working and you see that I'm not in a good mood, but I'm not telling you anything about it. But I'm snappy, right? I'm snappy and
Mhm,
I'm grumpy and I'm acting out of character and I'm making you feel like crap while you're working. And, if you ask me, well, what's going on? Nothing. Why would you say something's going on? Well, now we've got this invisible wall between us, right? There's
Mm.
nothing authentic happening. You and your senses know something's not quite right, but now you're in a position where you're afraid to ask. And I am like putting up so much barricades that you don't know what's going on. Now, let's use that same situation. I come into work, you're noticing something's going on, and I say, I finally, like, in a quiet moment, I've got the employees there, and I say, you know what, guys, I know I'm not myself today, and I'm really sorry for that. I'd like to apologize for not being myself today. There's a couple things going off in the background. You guys don't need to know about it, but just know that I'll be back to normal tomorrow. I'm probably just having a rough day. Now,
Hmm.
if I do it that way, something's going on. I've been very vulnerable with you. We've had that human connection, that genuine, authentic moment. I haven't given away too much. You haven't lost respect of me as a leader, but now we all understand, okay, something's going on and we get it. And it's not going to affect me or my work, or, it's just something that we have to connect as a human being together, right?
And the employees then know that it's not them, that
Correct.
they haven't accidentally done
Yeah.
something wrong that is making you upset, that
Yeah.
you're like, you guys are all okay. This is on me. I'm
Yeah.
processing it the way I need to. And I want you to know you're doing fine. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm
Exactly. I
here.
mean, think about it, even when we were kids, right? If our parents, we heard them fighting in the other room, or, something going on,
Hmm.
and then they didn't tell us what was going on, then we all felt very responsible, like, oh, am I doing something wrong? Is it me? As like you have that moment. But if the parents were like, look, something, happened at work today. I guess I'm just having a bad day. Sorry, kids, mommy will be back together tomorrow. Then it takes that burden off of the person, and they realize
Yeah.
it's not so much about them or their job. They're doing okay, right? And sometimes, I mean, I always found, even if I was having, let's say, a craptacular day going into work, if you have created an environment, right, which comes back to the environment aspect, if you've created an environment of safety, of fun, it doesn't matter what's happened to me. And you brought it up yourself. You could come in feeling really crappy about something, but you left feeling great. So it has the ability to kind of, when you're all in that human journey together, being authentic, bringing your whole selves to work, having those human connections between leaders and between your team, it can turn around things. So all of a
Hmm.
sudden now it's fine, right? And maybe the thing that was so huge in the background is now no longer such a huge issue. So I mean, there are advantages to having a leader who understands connectivity and communication, right from the get-go, that even benefits them, in those darkest moments, in those crappy moments. uh, you find common ground and you lift each other up, right? It's not about everyone singularly with blinders on going towards a goal. We're lifting each other
Yeah.
up for a common good.
Yeah. Now we're going to wrap up in a moment or so, but
Yeah.
I just want to ask one last question.
Yeah.
Um, So you mentioned your first job, 14
Yeah.
years old, you couldn't work out in the front of the store. And when you're thinking about your first leadership role, if
Yeah.
you could give advice
Mm.
to your younger self who is stepping into her first leadership role, what would you say to her? And I'm asking this question because there are people who listen to this who are entering their first leadership role and are trying to kind of get their head around it.
Yeah.
But what would you say to your younger self about
Oh,
how to be a leader?
that's a really good question. I think I think that I wish my manager when I was 14 understood this as well. And it's certainly something I wish I'd learned faster with my own leadership journey. And that is to remember that every single person who you're wanting to come on this journey with you, right? You're going to be the Pied Piper. You're going to want them to come with you towards a common goal, right? For your
Hmm.
company or for your business or whatever. You need to be able to understand that, to the people who are joining you, one, you've got to know their buy-in, but two, they might be scared. They might be nervous. This is brand new for them, right? You got to remember what it was like to be their age or be in their shoes as a starting point. Because if you can, I mean, and I used to see this all the time. I don't know if you saw it. You probably did, because you also have had quite the storied career. But
Hmm.
those people who it's their first day, you can spot them a mile away. They're nervous, they're scared, they don't know, they have no real footing at this point, right? And they're just trying to figure things out. Have that moment with that person and say, hey, don't be scared. It's going to be okay.
Hmm.
I was like you. And then tell them a story of how bad your first day was, right? I always find that I do that with new team members is that I would go, listen, like I'd find somebody like literally just almost in tears in the back or they're feeling overwhelmed. And I would say, don't even stress it. You know what happened my first day? Let me tell you a little story. And I would sit there and tell them about terrible things that happened to me when I first started. And all of a sudden now it's like, there's that connection. You've already, without even knowing that person, without them knowing you as a leader, you have created a connection to this person who you can now say, okay, now follow me. We're about to do
Hmm.
great things.
Karen, I'm going to ask you one last little question, and this
Sure.
is away from the leadership, and this is purely for anyone who's a Starbucks person who's listening to this,
Yeah.
which is we all had that one customer
Oh, yeah.
who asked to have their very specific drink, and it was some crazy drink.
Oh, yeah.
Mine was the Ristretto Grande one raw sugar latte macchiato. What was the one drink that you remember some customer asking for?
Venti, sugar-free vanilla, 190-degree breve latte.
All right, 190 degrees.
Oh, do you know what? I mean, for those who don't know, a breve is made with half and half cream. It's like or whipping cream. It's the most disgusting drink in the history of ever. And this one person would come in every day and drink that. And I remember like when I would see them coming, I'd be like, oh no, 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 sugar-free vanilla. Here we go. It's right. It's the breve latte, the venti, right?
Is huge.
And I would always like give eyeballs to whoever was either on the till or, on the bar and like, oh, because
Here we go.
the smell of it, come on now. Like, ooh, yeah, those things they have like slammed themselves into my brain. I will never, it's tattooed in there.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely. But
Okay,
Matthew, I was
I'm
going to
gonna
say, Matthew,
end.
it has been a delight, honestly, to be able to talk to you about this. I respect a lot of what you're doing. I think the world needs more Matthew K. Devines, if you ask me. But I might be biased.
Thank
But
you,
hopefully,
Karen.
yeah, hopefully we've given somebody else another perspective on leadership and management today. That's
Yeah.
my goal.
And I want to thank you for not only being here today, but also just being, a good mentor and advisor over the years, even after we stopped being manager employee. It's been wonderful to have you as part of in my orbit of people that I look to.
The circle of trust, Matthew. I certainly appreciate it.
Okay, we're gonna end this. So thank you very much, Karen.
Right?
And how should people, if they want to get in touch with you, should they reach out to you on LinkedIn? Like, what do you recommend?
Actually, I am on LinkedIn. If anybody does kind of want to know my thoughts on life, the universe, and everything, the fact that it equals 42, you are more than welcome to hit me up on LinkedIn. That's fine. If you happen to be in amongst the social media sphere and you stumble across me, I am on TikTok and a couple other places. And usually with my Kermit doll sometimes in the background. He's come on lots of journeys with me. But yeah, definitely on LinkedIn. It's probably the best way.
Okay, awesome. All right, Karen, we're gonna wrap up. So thank you very much.
Thank you.